Is Ted Cruz bought and paid for? On today's episode of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides, we'll talk about Kaitlyn Clark and her rivalry with the WNBA. We'll talk about the border crossings for May, our current situation happening with deportations and ICE, and then we'll move into the Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz interview before we talk a little bit more about Iran and Israel. All of that and much more coming up on today's episode of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides, starting now.
The moment is here. This is our moment.
America, we are back, baby. Welcome to another episode of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides. This is episode 72. Let's dive right into our topics today. We've talked about Kaitlyn Clark before. She is the star of the WNBA. Arguably, their only good player they really have in the league. Before they had Kaitlyn Clark in the WNBA, the players would have to fly commercially. They're a league that's subsidized by the NBA. So if the NBA didn't send them extra money, millions and millions of dollars a year, they wouldn't exist. They're a debt. They do not run on profit. And this is starting to change a little bit now that we have Kaitlyn Clark in the league. We're starting to see an explosive amount of viewership from young girls all around the country, and not even just young girls. There are sports fans everywhere across the nation. Me personally, I'm a massive Kaitlyn Clark fan. I watch almost every Indiana Fever game. And last night's game, it was absolutely atrocious what they let happen to Kaitlyn Clark. Kaitlyn Clark coming back from an injury. During that injury, the viewership in the WNBA was down over 55%. This is how they treated Kaitlyn Clark right after coming back. And this is how the WNBA refs allowed players to treat her with almost zero repercussions. Let's take a look right here. You can see right here the play. You see she literally goes right for her face, and then right after, she lays her out. That should be a flagrant automatic ejection, but no, the WNBA does not care. I'm going to show you guys another clip right here. We're going to take a look at how Kaitlyn Clark's teammate stood up for her. The refs aren't going to stand up for her. The WNBA might not. But at least we have Sophia Cunningham standing up for Kaitlyn Clark. Let's go, Sophia Cunningham. Here's the clip. Right here, you can see she absolutely wastes no time. She throws her right down to the ground as she sees her driving down the court. She takes 2 steps back because she sees 2 other girls coming her way, puts her hands right around the back of their shoulders. She obviously has a little MMA or jiu-jitsu training in her. She knows what she's doing. But this is what Kaitlyn Clark needs. Someone in the WNBA, someone on the Indiana Fever who's going to have her back when the refs don't. When the WNBA and the refs and all the other players are conspiring against Kaitlyn, when they hate Kaitlyn, when they don't love the fact that she's a white, successful NBA player or WNBA player, we need someone like this. Someone who's going to stand up for her and say, you know what? I'm not going to let these people bully you around. You are the reason that this league is successful. You are the reason that jersey sales are successful. You are inspiring young girls all around this nation to want to pick up a basketball. I'm going to do what I can to protect you. That's why we love Sophia Cunningham, because she right now seems to be one of the only players on the Indiana Fever who have Kaitlyn Clark's back. I'm very proud of Sophia Cunningham. I'm very proud of the Indiana Fever for all the ways they support Kaitlyn Clark. I hope Kaitlyn Clark has continued success in the WNBA. Like I said, she is by far the best player in the league. The blatant racism by the WNBA needs to stop. They launched a full-scale investigation when Angel Reese missed a free throw to see if racist remarks were screamed by the crowd, only to find out it was booze. But Kaitlyn Clark is continuously targeted by Angel Reese and other players, and the WNBA does nothing about it. It is so sad to see. I want to talk about some news we got from the Trump White House. We have news that there have been 0 border crossings in all of May. This is a massive accomplishment for the America First agenda that we're pushing. This is a massive accomplishment for the no illegal immigration agenda we're pushing. Over Biden's term, in the average of all the Mays, so if you took the 4 Mays under Biden's term, he averaged 6,500 every May. That's illegal border crossings. Just last May alone, there was over 8,000 illegal border crossings. This is a massive drop in illegal border crossings. This is, like I said, a huge win for the America First movement, a huge win for Republicans and conservatives everywhere, and a huge win for America. We need to do what we can to limit and stop all illegal immigration in this country. And like I said, we need to do what we can to stop legal immigration for the time being, to get a full accounting of everyone in this country. I'm a big believer of our government has a duty to take care of the American people before they take care of the citizens of other countries. The current state of America is not great. We have a lot of problems domestically. We have massive drug and obesity crisis. We have political unrest in the streets. We have riots happening every day. We have a lot of problems we need to fix domestically before we can continue to send our dollars overseas and allow our tax dollars to continue to fund illegal and legal immigration in different states. One of the ways your tax dollars is funding illegal immigration, if you live in the state of New York, your governor just announced that 50 million New York taxpayer dollars will be spent to fund the lawyers of illegal immigrants. If you live in the state of New York, your tax rate is already through the roof. I think you pay like a 33% state tax or whatever it is, and then there's a New York City tax on top of it. And now your tax dollars are being spent to help illegals fight against Donald Trump. It is absolutely absurd the way Democrats, they think they can waste your tax dollars. It's waste, fraud, and abuse. It's borderline money laundering. I'm sure a lot of the money is not going to go towards that. I'm sure a lot of the money is going to line the pockets of a lot of judges, a lot of bureaucrats, and a lot of NGOs. The way money goes in politics, it gets wasted and laundered so fast, there's no way to really keep track of it. It was one of the biggest problems Elon Musk dealt with at Doge. He said that the amount of just blank payments where you wouldn't know where it's coming from and you don't even know where it's going to, and there is zero way to track it. They're everywhere in the government. It's unstoppable. It's been a problem for decades, and it's a problem they can't root out because of all the corruption we currently have in our government. There's way too much corruption in the American government. We need an America like there used to be. You hear people all the time, generally really old people, World War II veterans, who say this isn't the America they knew and loved. And I wish I could see the America they knew and loved, because I'm sure I would love it a lot more than this America today. I love America a lot, but America has its problems, and America needs to fix these problems, and the problems domestically need to be taken care of before we continuously fund all the problems for everyone else around the world. That also brings us into our last topic of the day. It's something we've been talking about for weeks, the Israel and Iranian conflict. Tucker Carlson interviewed Ted Cruz about it yesterday. He released the interview today on X, YouTube, Rumble, and all social media platforms. Everyone who has not watched this, go watch this now, please. This interview was insane. They targeted each other constantly in this interview. They were going at each other's throats by the end of it. They were calling each other names. They were insulting each other. And it seemed that Ted Cruz was getting super flustered the entire time with Tucker Carlson's interview objective. He felt like Tucker Carlson was trying to expose him in this interview, which I don't think that was the initial objective of the interview, was to expose him, but I think he did get exposed throughout it. I'm going to go through a lot of the highlights of this interview. It's a 2-hour interview. I urge all you guys to watch it. I think it's a must-see. But in the interview, they talk about Ted Cruz's funding from AIPAC. So AIPAC is the American Israeli Political Action Conference. They pretty much lobby for a foreign government in the United States. They're lobbying for Israel in the United States government. It's very well known. It's undisputed. It's not like people could say they're not doing. That's exactly what they're doing. But they're not registered as a foreign lobbyist, which is a very odd thing. Tucker Carlson brought that up in the interview, and he brought up that Ted Cruz takes a lot of money from AIPAC, as do a lot of politicians in America. The vast amount of politicians take money from AIPAC. But he brought up that, and Ted Cruz's response was, "You're an anti-Semite." Why is it that he didn't say Jewish once? He didn't say Jew. He didn't mention the religion. He didn't mention religion at all in this conversation at this point. He had mentioned the state of Israel. He had mentioned Israeli intelligence. And he had mentioned AIPAC, and that they are a lobbyist who are lobbying for a foreign government, Israel's government, in America. That is literally what they do. And you have to be registered as a foreign lobbyist to lobby for foreign governments. And they are not registered as a foreign lobbyist. They're registered as a domestic lobbyist, which is a lot different. So the fact that Ted Cruz thought calling Tucker Carlson an anti-Semite was the right answer, it really confused me. And it really made me take a step back and look at all the other people who are just called anti-Semites out of nowhere. Sure, there are some real anti-Semites. Kanye released a song called Heil Hitler. That's very anti-Semitical. There are people who say anti-Semitical things all the time. That person had that sign that said "fuck the Jews" at Dave Portnoy's bar. Again, anti-Semitical, not okay, not defensible. But how is asking about AIPAC's funding of government officials in the United States government anti-Semitic? How is questioning the funding of a foreign lobbyist for a foreign nation in the United States influencing political conflicts in the United States anti-Semitic? I don't understand this. How did it become anti-Semitic to question Israel? I understand if you said something negative about the Jewish religion. I understand if you were implying that everyone in Israel was negative because they were Jewish. But saying that Israeli intelligence and Israeli lobbyists should not be able to influence American politics seems like a very normal statement to me. That seems like something that Ted Cruz shouldn't have flipped out on. And immediately you could see the comments in it go from just normal spam comments in an interview YouTube live feed to blowing up. It was immediately blowing up. What the hell? What the hell's going on? Did he really just say that? Did he really just call him an anti-Semite? How did it go from these two guys who are friends? They're doing an interview. They're talking about the Iranian-Israel conflict. He brings up one question about AIPAC, and it goes to him being an anti-Semite. This is a huge question that needs to be answered in America. Are we allowed to speak out against Israel without being called anti-Semites? I've been speaking out against Israel almost all week. I speak out against everything they've done in this Iranian attack. I don't think they should have done it in the first place. I think if they were worried about a nuke, they should have let the United States handle it. I think the fact that the United States is now entwined in this war in what they're calling a defensive position is terrible. I think it's bad for America, it's bad for Israel, it's bad for the world, and there's no such thing as a defensive position in war. When you're in a defensive position in war, you're just in war. That's just another nicer way to say it that doesn't make it seem like you're actually in war. But I was promised no new wars around the world under Donald Trump's term, and now we have a new war. There's a massive war that we might be involved in. It's not like there's just a war between two countries. The United States is now actively involved in this war. So yes, we do deserve answers. And no, Ted Cruz, Tucker Carlson is not an anti-Semite for questioning AIPAC's possible involvement in getting the U.S. into this war. Considering Cruz is pushing for the regime change in Israel right now, it's not out of the question to think that AIPAC is influencing this decision with him. Considering that a lot of people in our government who aren't taking money from AIPAC are standing out against this, and a lot of the people who are seem to be for it. I am not for a regime change in Iran through United States involvement right now. I am not for the denuclearization of Iran through U.S. involvement right now. I am not through defending Israel from Iran through U.S. involvement. If Israel wanted to get themselves into this war, that is their own prerogative. But it is not our job to protect every one of our allies every time they want to go unilaterally strike somebody. Especially Israel, someone we fund to the tune of $3 billion a year. And Ted Cruz was asked by Tucker Carlson about the finances that we give to Israel every year. He kept saying it's $3 billion a year. And then Tucker Carlson will push back, but how much over the last week? How much is it costing us to move our aircraft carriers over there? How much does it cost to send the tanks over? How much is it costing to have complete and total control of the Iranian airspace the way we do right now? Even though we're not supposed to be involved in this war, the United States has control over Iranian airspace, helping defend Israel. It obviously is costing millions and billions of dollars. If anyone knows how the war machine works, it's an economy on its own. It is costing the taxpayer billions of dollars for all this to happen. So not only was I promised no new wars around the world, now my taxpayer dollars are funding a war around the world that I don't want the U.S. to be involved in at all, that we're now involved in directly. Even though they want to say, no, we're just in a defensive position. That's another way of saying that we're directly involved in this war, and it's going to be a continuous involvement. After they talked about the finances, Tucker then pushed on another topic. He started talking about Israeli intelligence because while Israel doesn't have the biggest army, they might not have all the weapons, they might not have the biggest missiles, what they do have, and they are extremely strong in, is intelligence. The United States are strong in intelligence as well, but Israeli intelligence is amazing. And Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson were going back and forth about the idea of sharing intelligence through allies, and if Israel is sharing all their intelligence with the United States, and what intelligence they're also collecting on us. Tucker Carlson proposed the idea that not only are we funding Israel, but we are funding them to spy on us as well. And Ted Cruz admitted to this. Ted Cruz said, yes, it is most likely that Israel is spying on us the same way we spy on our allies. And I understand we should be spying on our allies. The difference is we are funding them. They should not be spying on us when we are funding them. If we are funding them, it should be contingent on the fact that they are not infiltrating our society with spies. This is a very American principle that should be just America 101, Law 101. This shouldn't be allowed. They should not be allowed to infiltrate our society with spies as we're funding them. They shouldn't be able to infiltrate our society with spies regardless, but especially now when we're funding them to the tune of $3 billion a year at a minimum. How is that okay? This is a complete lapse in judgment by the government. This is something that I think more politicians need to be held accountable for. And I really want to start questioning more Ted Cruz motives for this regime change. Ted Cruz was heavily pushing for this Iranian conflict to essentially continue between Israel and Iran and for United States involvement. He wants to see the United States completely overthrow the regime in Iran right now. This is something that I don't understand. We have had so much poor involvement in the Middle East. We literally created ISIS only to them go to war with them and then overthrow the government in Syria for ISIS to now be in control of Syria. We are constantly over there losing American soldiers. We had one of the worst withdrawals from Afghanistan. It was one of the most embarrassing things and possibly one of the reasons that Putin invaded Ukraine. So there are a lot of questions about the motives for people behind these wars in the Middle East. There are a lot of questions behind the influence in American politics for why America is going into these wars when Donald Trump has been pushing this America First campaign since 2016. And then now this is the opposite of America First. Funding Israel's war and not only funding it, but actively deploying our fighter jets and using our military abilities to defend their airspace is not America first. It seems like Israel over America. It seems like anyone else over America. We need to be putting America first. I want to defend America. I want our tax dollars to be spent in America. They brought this point up. If you knocked on 100 doors in America today and you asked them their biggest problems, how many of them are going to say Iran or Israel? Almost zero. How many are going to say the obesity crisis? How many are going to say finances? How many are going to say gas prices or the fact that people in my generation will never be able to afford homes? It's a lot. It's skyrocketing. The problems domestically need to be fixed before we continue to try and fix the problems abroad. I am not interested in funding this war for Israel. I'm not interested in fighting this war for Israel. And I'm not interested in the continuous influence in United States politics. I think lobbying almost altogether should be made illegal. I think lobbying only leads to negative things. Lobbying in smoking is some of the reason you see all the bans on different vapes, even though vapes are proved to be way healthier than cigarettes and different flavors with nicotine pouches. Lobbying is what is bringing unfair gun control and restricting your Second Amendment rights, and lobbying is pushing us into foreign wars. If you don't think AIPAC's involvement in our government is pushing us into this war, then you need to learn a little bit more about American politics, because currently we are seeing a complete flip from the American First 2016 Donald Trump movement to this, okay, we need to overthrow Iran's regime from Donald Trump. I'm not okay with this. Most of America is not okay with this. I urge anyone to try and find me 10 Americans who are okay with sending their fathers, brothers, or sons to go die overseas for Israel right now, because I can't find a single person in this country who wants to do it. When asked in the interview why Cruz wanted to protect Israel, he said it was because the Bible tells him to protect Israel. Tucker Carlson then asked, what Bible verse does it say that? Ted Cruz did not know. Ted Cruz, again, wants to do this because AIPAC is influencing him to. It has nothing to do with the Bible. It has nothing to do with what he is telling you. That's another politician lie. These are warmongers pushing for conflict, pushing for the United States to get involved. They're trying to capitalize and make money. War is an economy on its own. More money is laundered and stolen in war than any other times in history. People are made rich, and especially politicians. This is something that I'm heavily against. Like I said, I do not want us to fund this war in Israel. I do not want us to fight this war in Israel. I do not want American patriots to die for any other country right now. I want us to focus on the problems domestically. I want us to focus on our great cities. Like, think about this. Think about the fact that DC, New York, LA, Chicago, some of the most beautiful, or at a point, some of the most beautiful cities in this country are overrun by crime, overrun by gangs, overrun by drug overdoses and homelessness and illegal aliens. These are things that we need to rid this country of. These are problems that we need to focus on. These are things that I want for the America First campaign. I'm James Pascalides. This is episode 72 of America Unfiltered. I'm signing off today. I hope you guys have a blessed day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.